All right, I'm gonna pick out either a non-photo blue or my color race red, and just start to lay the groundwork for this image. Remember how we measure angles? How do we measure angles with our pencil? Sighting, yes. So we close one eye, we hold up our pencil, we look at the angle, we bring it down to the paper. Framing. The image there on the left is providing you with a frame so that you can use those proportions to block out the entire frame of the paper. We hold up our two hands to frame an image or an object or a series or a still life, and we understand its proportional relationship to the frame. So I can see that there's a distance from the edge of the paper to the edge of that corner, right? We can see that there's a distance from the edge of the paper to that corner. These are all the things that Hari and Joe hopefully shared with you in the first semester. So we're providing this isometric view here. We now need to look at this base plane, and then we need to place the presence of these shapes. I can see that our pyramid, our green pyramid, is located approximately halfway there. Because the last couple of weeks have involved the use of red spheres. I included a red sphere. Our infamous red ball. For circles, what I like to do, very similar sighting technique, I close one eye and I trace the curvature of the sphere in the air. I point my pencil in the air. I start to make the muscular motion of circle, 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 circle. And then I bring that muscular memory motion of the circle back down to the paper. I practice, and then I mark. Okay? So circle, 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 bring it down to the paper, and just loosely practice that shape as opposed to feeling like you have to draw it immediately. You can practice, 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 and then start to make the mark. Okay? Now, look at our yellow cube over on the right. Look at its proportional relationship to its base. Let's look at that. Let's see where it is. Let's understand its relationship of its corner and its footing to that particular base. Let's look at the point of the pyramid now. Look at it. Look where it is relative to the entire leg of that particular base. It's not quite in the middle, is it? It's a little bit to the left of the middle. So if we were to locate that point for that pyramid, we could locate it relative to the position of that base and then connect the dots. Y'all didn't grow up with Pee-wee's Playhouse, but I did. There was a song in Pee-wee's Playhouse called Connect the Dots. If you haven't seen Pee-wee's Playhouse, it is a important form of television from the 20th century. And a lot of great artists worked on that particular television show. A lot of great sculptors, puppeteers, scenic artists all worked on that show. The cylinder, similar thing. The cylinder has a foreshortened circle. Not quite an ellipse, at least the way the SketchUp model is communicating it. So I practice the shape. I close one eye. I trace it in the air. Then I come down here and I practice. Maybe there. Bring it down. In isometric projection, there is no perspective distortion, so lines tend to be parallel here. So you can have some comfort as we sketch here an isometric view. Oh, 1986 called, wants its music back. All these lines are going to be parallel. This is parallel to this. This is parallel to this. This is parallel to this, etc. Isometric view is very comfortable because it has the reliance that parallel edges will be parallel, that there is no perspective distortion. Oh, gravity. Gravity. Okay, let's work from the back forward. So I'm going to pick a very light blue. I'm going to leave a little bit of white. And I vary my intensity. I'm going to trace over this shape here. And that add intensity.
To all your cool jazz friends about this online powerhouse, cooljazznetwork.com.
Then a light green. I'll add intensity to the shaded side. A brilliant yellow. You'll notice I tend to make sort of a circular motion when I make color washes and colored pencil that are relative to the boundary. I'm also kind of leaning on my pinky or one side of my wrist to create a repetitive motion. Some folks do tend to smudge that way. Some folks like to use their pinky to pivot and use their pinky as a pivot point, or the knuckle of their pinky as a pivot point. Either way, you're making a repetitive motion with your entire arm, not just the wrist. If you're doing this with the wrist, you're at risk of making a radius or an arc. We want a scrubbing, repetitive motion that allows you to lay down a wash of colored pencil there. I want to leave a little bit of white for our red ball for it to sort of depict the presence of light there. But again, I need to vary the intensity and pressure of the color as we fill in this red ball. Light intensity or less pressure up by the reflective point, more intensity or more pressure as we get around the curvature or the underbelly of the ball. Intensity, saturation, or chroma. Some of these terms are somewhat interchangeable, but intensity can translate directly to the pressure that you put on the pencil. Just as we would in pen, with using cross-hatching techniques, we can add successive layers of pencil to surfaces to accentuate their curvature and intensify the value of color that we're seeing. This gives the illusion of depth and surface in the picture. All right, I'm now selecting a light purple or a light lavender. If you have one in your set, if not, a dark purple will do. Very lightly, I'm going to add some dark purple to the side of this green here in a cross-hatching fashion. I then will take that green back and layer it back in. If you're using the Prismacolor Premier pencils or the Prismacolor Scholar pencils, the blending occurs with successive layers. A lot of you asked me about the blender tool or the blender color. Yes, that is a valid Prismacolor color, but if we are working in layers, the colors will blend themselves because of the wax content of the pencil itself. Do we see how that adds more an illusion of shade on that side of the pyramid? Do we see that? It's a yes or no question. Okay. I'll take that same dark purple. I'll add it now to the blue. Very little of it because we already have a lot going on there. I don't need more. With the yellow, it can work. I like the light lavender. Again, this is a practice of a color complement or a complementary pair. Purple is the opposite of yellow. Yellow is evident or is present in green. It's present in brown. So it's a good color complement for a lot of the landscape and architectural and environmental colors that we use. So I have a layer of that lavender. I then come back with my yellow and I help blend it in. For that whole side. If I'm not happy with it, I just add another layer in a cross-hatching fashion. And then with that yellow, another cross-hatching direction, blend it in. So again, there are colorless blenders. There are also paper blenders. They look like really tightly knit rolls of paper. My friends who took drawing studios across the street often use those to blend their Prismacolor pencils to get very, very even shades or depictions of color. We don't really have time for that. These folks, the illustrators who learned those techniques, would spend 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 hours on a single drawing. In professional practice, we don't have time for that. We need to depict things quickly. We need to be able to depict things quickly, so we are doing our best to depict this picture in an efficient manner. Okay, now we can start working on the shadows. So similarly, for this shaded side here, we're now going to layer in the shape of the cylinder onto our cube. Start to draw that shape. and then layer in some purple in the presence of that shadow. I then bring back my yellow, blend it in. I'm going to use the purple for the shadow, so it'll give the picture some nice intensity. So I'm just going to keep using this purple now. I need to bring back the blue, layer that on. Yeah, I like that. So I'm bringing the purple onto the red ball now, the red sphere, layering that in. It's also blending some of the red into the paper. If you're working on regular paper, cardstock that I brought, or your sketchbook, it should work pretty well. I then sketch in the shape of the shadow that I'm observing. And again, I tend to use a diagonal or even a circular motion for my Prismacolor washes. I call it a wash because it's a watercolor term. A wash in watercolor is a thin layer of a single hue with a single intensity. I'm observing the angle of shadow that goes past our base. I observe where the shadow is occurring. All the shadow these two shadow lines are parallel. I like that. And this shadow line is parallel to the base and to the cube itself. And again, I'm using my entire arm to make this motion, but I do tend to prefer a diagonal or a circular, even circular scrubbing motion to lay in a thin layer of Prismacolor pencil. Got to make sure that these are parallel. It looks pretty good. So if I want to add another layer, I'll continue adding another layer in a different direction. Successive layers are easy to add, particularly if they're parallel to the lines that you're drawing. So. I'm going to pick a darker purple or even a blue now to add a little bit more darkness to our red sphere. So again, a dark blue or can add that sense of depth and curvature to the red sphere itself. Now I'm reviewing my drawing. I'm looking at all of the different layers and washes, just making sure they're balanced. I don't have a lot of cross-hatching that's going all these awry directions, so I can continue to add layer layers of cross-hatching so that the drawing is balanced in terms of its perceived texture. Fill in any gaps that I see. And if I care about line weight or line surface, I might accentuate or simply reinforce some of the lines that we laid down in red pencil. If we care about that. If we care about the crispness, got to work in that word every day now. The crispness of that line. That was for Richard. That completes the representation of these four geometric figures.